Story 1. The doorbell rang at 2:43 a.m. Erica bolted upright in bed, heart hammering. No one should be visiting at that hour, especially not in her remote, forest-shrouded cabin. She grabbed her phone, no signal. Not unusual. But still, the timing chilled her. She crept to the window, peeking through the curtain. A figure stood on the porch, unmoving. No knocking, no speaking. Just standing. Their silhouette was featureless in the moonlight. She backed away. The doorbell rang again. She whispered, "Go away," though she knew they couldn't hear. Her breath came in shallow gasps. The cabin had no weapons, just kitchen knives and a fireplace poker. She grabbed the poker and crept closer to the door, pressing her ear against it. Silence. After several minutes, she peeked through the peephole. Empty. Relief flickered. Then her phone lit up. Front door camera notification, motion detected. She tapped the notification. The video loaded, blurry at first. A glitch. Then the figure was there again, closer now, facing the camera directly. No face. Just a shifting blur like static in the shape of a head. A flicker of something unnatural. Then the video glitched again, just as the figure raised a hand and pointed, not at the door, but at the camera itself. Erica dropped the phone. The moment it hit the floor, the power went out. Darkness swallowed the cabin. She backed into the living room, clutching the poker. The fireplace offered a vague outline of the room. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was it a prank? Some forest psycho? Or something worse? The creak of floorboards came from upstairs. She hadn't gone upstairs today. No one should be there. She locked herself in the bathroom, trembling. The sound of slow, deliberate footsteps came down the hallway. She pressed her ear to the bathroom door, holding her breath. Then something whispered her name. Not shouted, whispered. Erica. It came from behind her. She turned. The bathroom mirror was fogging over, though there was no steam, no heat. Then words appeared. "Let me in." She screamed and slammed her hand against the mirror, shattering it. Behind the shards was nothing, just the wall. Then silence. No footsteps. No whispering. Just the stillness of dread. She didn't sleep that night. At dawn, she crept out. No figure on the porch. No signs of forced entry. She got in her car and drove until the forest gave way to highway. 2 days later, safe in her apartment in the city, she checked the cabin's camera footage from the cloud backup. She watched as the figure stood silently at the porch. Then, at 2:49 a.m., the camera recorded something it shouldn't have been able to. A recording of her, inside the bathroom, speaking softly to the mirror. But her mouth didn't move like she remembered. Instead, it smiled and whispered back to the mirror. "I already let you in." Story 2. The train emerged from the tunnel, and for the first time in 20 minutes, Harold could breathe easy again. He hated that tunnel. The lights always flickered in there, the darkness pressed too close, and lately, he'd been having dreams about being buried alive, dreams that always started with that same tunnel. He was the only passenger in the last car. That suited him. Quiet. No people. The train rattled on, surrounded by trees on both sides. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and tried to forget the sense of suffocation. When he opened them again, the world outside was completely black. He blinked. Just trees before, how could it be night already? He checked his phone. 2:17 p.m. Still daylight. He stood and walked to the window. Pressed his hand against the glass. It wasn't just dark, it was void. No stars, no lights, no reflections. Like the train was moving through nothing. Then he noticed something else. The train wasn't moving anymore. No motion. No sound. Not even the usual hum of power. He tried the intercom. Dead. He banged on the window, called out. No answer. Panic rising, he moved to the next car. Empty. The one after that? Also empty. But not completely. A woman sat slumped in one of the back seats, her head resting against the window. Relieved, Harold rushed over. Miss? Hello? Are you all right? She didn't respond. He reached out to shake her shoulder. Her head rolled toward him. Her eyes had been gouged out. And in her mouth was a single train ticket, printed with a date, today's. He stumbled back in horror, hands shaking. Then the lights flickered. Just once. He turned, and saw every seat now occupied. Dozens of passengers who hadn't been there moments ago. All facing forward. All pale. All watching him from the corners of their eyes. He ran. Back through the cars, all the way to the rear. Slamming doors behind him. Then he realized, the last car wasn't the last car anymore. The hallway stretched on into more cars that hadn't existed before. And from the far end, he saw them coming. A line of figures in conductor uniforms. But their skin was translucent. Their jaws dangled like broken hinges. Their eyes, where they had them, gleamed like shards of coal. He bolted into a random car and locked the door. Inside was a boy, maybe 10 years old, sitting quietly, coloring. The boy looked up at him. You missed your stop. What? Harold gasped. You're not supposed to be here anymore. I don't understand. The boy held up a drawing. It showed the train derailed in a twisted mess. Fire. Smoke. Everyone's gone, the boy said. They just don't know it yet. Harold looked out the window again. And this time, he saw it. A crash site in the distance. Flames licking the sky. The same train, this train, crumpled and broken, resting in a ravine. Then the car filled with shrieking. The doors burst open. The conductors were there. Harold screamed and turned to flee. But the boy was gone. And so was the door. He was alone. The train began to move again. Back into the tunnel. Back into the dark. Story 3. Maggie found the phone buried under a pile of ash in the abandoned house. She shouldn't have been there, it was off limits, condemned after the fire 5 years ago. But curiosity tugged at her, especially with all the rumors. People said the family never made it out, that their bodies were never found. She didn't believe in ghosts. But the house made her uneasy. Cold, even in the dead of summer. The phone was old, flip style, scorched on the edges. Odd that it still worked. When she opened it, the screen lit up. One unread message. Can you hear me now? Maggie laughed nervously. Just some prank, right? She hit the power button, but the screen stayed on. She pressed it again. Still on. She tried removing the battery, but it was fused in place. Then the phone buzzed in her hand. New message, it's so dark in here. Maggie dropped it. As soon as it hit the floor, every window in the house slammed shut. The air shifted, thicker, heavier. She ran for the front door, but it wouldn't budge. The phone buzzed again. She picked it up, trembling. We can't find the way out. Maggie screamed, pounding on the door. The phone buzzed again. We're not alone in here. A faint sound rose from the second floor. Children's laughter. And something else, dragging chains. She backed away from the stairs, heart racing. The phone lit again. Picture message received. She opened it. It showed her, standing in the hallway, phone in hand. But the picture was taken from the ceiling, as if someone or something was watching her from above. Another buzz. Video call incoming. She hesitated, then answered. The screen showed a bedroom, charred, broken. Walls collapsed inward. A child stood in the center, facing away. Hello? Maggie whispered. the child turned slowly. Its eyes were hollow. Smoke drifted from its mouth. "We burned," it said. But we didn't leave. The camera swung suddenly, now showing the hallway Maggie stood in. But on the screen, she wasn't alone. Behind her, something tall, thin, and black with no face stood just inches away. She dropped the phone again and spun around. Nothing. But when she looked down, the phone was gone. In its place was a pile of ash and 3 small footprints leading away. Then, the doorknob turned, from the inside. The front door creaked open. Sunlight flooded in. She ran out, gasping. But when she looked back, the house was gone. Only a scorched clearing remained. And in the center, the phone sat upright in the ash, screen lit, waiting. Story 4. When Dale got the job as night security at the old Ridgewood Museum, he thought it would be easy money, just cameras, a few patrols, and no people to bother him. The place was huge and creaky, filled with dusty taxidermy, ancient suits of armor, and artifacts from civilizations long dead. He didn't believe in haunted museums or cursed relics. Until his 4th shift. At 2:11 a.m., one of the motion sensors tripped in Exhibit Hall B. He checked the feed, static. Unusual, but not alarming. He went to check it out in person. The hallway lights flickered as he passed, but they always did that. He entered Exhibit Hall B. Empty. Except, no. One of the mannequins was missing its head. It had been part of a Victorian funeral display, a mourning woman in a black veil, hands folded. Her head had been turned slightly to the left. Now, it was gone. Clean off. No damage. No signs of tampering. Then Dale noticed something chilling. A set of faint footprints, bare, human, trailing away from the exhibit. He followed them. They led past the ancient Egyptian room, around the medieval section, and stopped outside the basement access, a door that was supposed to remain sealed at all times. The seal was broken. The air beyond it was cold, damp. It smelled like soil. He radioed the front desk. No answer. Reluctantly, Dale went down. The basement was filled with old crates, forgotten relics, and dust 2 inches thick. But what disturbed him most were the whispers, indistinct voices just outside his field of hearing. He followed the footprints to a crate labeled, "Property of St. Edelthorne Asylum, do not unseal." The crate was open. Inside, a straitjacket hung loosely around, nothing. As if someone had climbed out. Then, the lights died. Dale's flashlight flickered on, and in its beam, he saw the footprints again, fresh, now circling him. Then he saw it. A figure standing in the corner. Thin, contorted, wrapped in the empty straitjacket. No head. But when he moved the beam up, a face was there, hovering above the neck, detached, drifting. It smiled. Dale screamed and ran, stumbling over crates, slamming into walls. He reached the stairs and scrambled up them. Every exhibit was now wrong. The taxidermy animals had turned their heads to follow him. The armor held weapons now raised. The Victorian mannequins wept black tears. He ran to the security room, barricading the door. The screens showed every room in the museum. In every one, the exhibits moved. And in each, the headless figure appeared, one screen after another, drifting closer to the security room. Then the feed for his room flickered on. The camera showed him from behind. He turned, slowly. But no one was there. The screen glitched, just for a moment, and when it returned, he was gone. Only the empty chair remained, still warm. The next morning, the museum opened as usual. But no one could find Dale. All that remained was his badge, and the headless mannequin, now restored in the Victorian display, hands folded again, only this time, it wore Dale's uniform. Story 5. Melissa had never heard of the ninth door until she stayed the weekend at her grandmother's house in the countryside. It was a sprawling old farmhouse with strange quirks. Antique clocks that ticked out of sync, paintings whose eyes seemed to follow you, and a grandfather who disappeared decades ago without a trace. You're in the East Wing, her grandmother said. Third room on the right. Just don't open the ninth door. Melissa blinked. Ninth door? Her grandmother didn't elaborate. Curious, Melissa explored the East Wing that afternoon, counting. 1, 2, 3. She reached 8 doors total, including closets, bathrooms, and bedrooms. But on the far wall, between a bookshelf and a grandfather clock, was an odd gap in the wood paneling, like an outline of something once hidden. She pressed her fingers against it. A faint click. The wood swung open silently, revealing a narrow door, no knob, just a keyhole. The ninth door. That night, Melissa couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside. The old house groaned. And from the wall behind her bed, she heard a soft tapping, tap, tap, tap. She got up and went to the door. It was ajar. No longer sealed. Beyond it was a spiral staircase leading down, lit by old lanterns that flickered on without warning. She should have turned back. But something pulled her forward. She descended. The staircase ended at a narrow corridor lined with doors, each made of black iron, each with a different symbol carved above it. One bore a bird with no wings. Another, a clock with no hands. The door at the end was slightly open, leaking a dim, reddish light. Inside was a small room. On a table sat a single photograph, an old black and white family portrait. Her grandmother as a young woman. Her grandfather. And between them, a child Melissa had never seen before. The child's face was scratched out violently. On the wall behind the photo was a message scrawled in what looked like ash. I never left. The door slammed shut behind her. She screamed and pulled at it, but it wouldn't budge. Then the lights went out. A sound came from behind her. Not footsteps. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Hungry. She didn't look back. She kept her eyes shut. The breathing drew closer until it was just inches from her ear. And then, a whisper. You're the 10th now. The lights returned. The door creaked open. She fled back to her room and locked the door. In the morning, the 9th door was gone. When she asked her grandmother about the photo, the old woman went pale. There was another child, she whispered. Your great-uncle Elijah. He vanished through the 9th door. We never spoke of him again. That night, Melissa burned the east wing shut. But when she returned home, a package waited on her porch. No return address. Inside was a photograph. Her family. Her parents. Her grandmother. And herself, in the center. Only her face was scratched out. And beneath it, a note. You left me behind. Story 6. Alex bought the mirror at a roadside antique shop on a whim. It was tall, with a gold filigree frame and a faintly fogged glass. The shopkeeper warned him. It doesn't reflect what's in front of it. Only what's already behind you. He laughed it off. Just old junk. But something felt off when he got it home. In the reflection, his apartment looked darker, like the lights were dimmer by a few degrees. The shadows lingered longer. He tried cleaning it, but the fog never left the glass. That night, as he brushed his teeth, he glanced at the mirror from across the hall. It showed him brushing his teeth, but behind him, something stood in the hallway. Tall. Human-shaped. Watching. He spun around. Empty. Back to the mirror, nothing there now. Nerves, he thought. Tricks of light. But the next night, it returned. Always closer. By the 4th night, it stood just outside his bedroom in the reflection. He set up his phone to record the mirror overnight. When he watched the footage the next day, he felt cold all over. At 3:12 a.m., something stepped into view. No eyes. No mouth. Just a blurred shape, like someone scrubbed its features off. It tilted its head and watched him sleep. Then it reached for the mirror. Its hand came through the glass, just a few inches before retreating back. He unplugged the mirror and covered it with a sheet. The next morning, the sheet was folded neatly on the floor. The mirror gleamed. And in its reflection, Alex was no longer alone. Another version of him stood behind, expressionless. Identical clothes. Identical face. But the eyes were all wrong. Alex blinked. So did the copy. He moved. It didn't. He ran to the bathroom, slammed the door, and checked the medicine cabinet mirror. Only his reflection. But he could hear something breathing just outside. He turned off all the lights and hid in his closet with a flashlight. For hours, nothing happened. Then, he heard a knock. Not on the closet. On the inside of the mirror. Story 7. The town of Whistler's Hollow had one rule: never pick the flowers by the creek. Diana, an out-of-towner, didn't care much for old traditions. During her morning jog, she spotted the blooms, blood red with a violet shimmer. Gorgeous. Alien. She picked one and tucked it into her ponytail. She felt strange immediately. Lightheaded. Dizzy. That night, the dreams began. A black field. A woman with no mouth. Eyes bleeding down her cheeks. She handed Diana a bouquet of the same flowers and whispered into her mind. "You took what was mine." Diana woke with scratches on her neck. The flower in her room had wilted and turned black. She threw it out. The next morning, her hair was filled with more, dozens of the same flowers, growing from her scalp like fungus. She shaved her head in horror. But by evening, the flowers had returned. She went to the creek and tried to burn the patch she took from. The flames refused to catch. Instead, the flowers turned toward her, literally shifting, like sunflowers following light. And then she saw them. Figures in the water. Just beneath the surface. All with mouths sealed shut. All staring. At home, the flowers had spread to the walls, the floor, her bed. Red blossoms pulsing like veins. She tried to run. But every path out of Whistler's Hollow perked back to the creek. The woman from her dreams stood on the other side. Now, her mouth was open wide, too wide. Rows of jagged, wet teeth inside. "You gave them away in," she said, in a voice that sounded like rustling leaves. Diana tried to scream. But roots wrapped around her throat. The last thing she saw before the petals closed over her eyes was the creek, boiling with bodies. And every single one had a red flower blooming from the mouth. Story 8. Elliot was the only passenger aboard Flight 1935 when he awoke. The plane was midair, silent, smooth, but empty. Every seat was vacant. No flight attendants. No hum of conversation. Just a low, droning sound like a distant engine, muffled. He pressed the call button. No response. He checked his phone. No signal. He walked up the aisle. The cockpit door stood open. Inside, the controls blinked and flashed, but no one sat in the pilot's seats. He turned back, and the cabin was full. Every seat now occupied by passengers. Dead ones. Pale. Bloody. Faces twisted in panic. Some with oxygen masks on. Some with none. All frozen in terror. He stumbled backward. Then, a voice on the intercom crackled. "Welcome to Flight 1935. We hope you enjoyed your life." The plane bucked. A scream echoed down the aisle, but not from the corpses. From one living passenger. A girl, no older than 6, sat near the back, clutching a teddy bear. "They told me not to fall asleep," she said. "What happened? What is this?" Elliot cried. She looked up, eyes hollow. "This is the flight they never found. The one that never landed." The intercom clicked again. "Descent initiated." Elliot rushed to the emergency door. But the clouds outside had no end. No sky. No earth. Just infinite gray. He turned back to the cockpit. One of the pilots was now sitting upright. The head lolled backward at an impossible angle. No face. Just black. The hand moved, slowly pointing at him. You were never supposed to wake up. The plane dropped. Everything screamed around him. Elliot closed his eyes. And opened them in his bed. Home. Safe. He gasped in relief. Until he saw the flight number on the TV. This morning marks the 15th anniversary of Flight 1935's disappearance. He turned to his phone. New message. Return to your seat. We're not done descending. The TV flickered. His bedroom lights dimmed. And the sound of an airplane engine rumbled overhead, inside the house. Story 9. Marcus worked night shift at a roadside motel that hadn't seen a renovation since 1972. He mostly dealt with drifters and the occasional cheating couple, but one Thursday, a man checked in wearing a black suit, no luggage, and thick sunglasses, at midnight exactly. Room 209, the man said, voice flat. Do not assign anyone to 210. And no matter what you hear, you are not to open that door. Marcus laughed nervously. Weird neighbors, huh? The man didn't smile. This is not a joke. Then he handed Marcus a crisp 100. You'll earn this tonight. He walked off without another word. Room 209 was at the end of the second floor, next to 210, an out-of-order room with a busted lock. No one had used it in years. Marcus figured the guy just wanted privacy. Around 1:13 a.m., Marcus heard knocking over the intercom. Room 210's line was calling the front desk. Confused, he answered. Static. Then a whisper, let me in. Please. Please, God. Let me out. He hung up. He checked the log. No one was in 210. The call came again. This time, laughter, childlike, high-pitched, and layered with something else. Like a tape running backward beneath it. He disabled the phone system. At 2:04 a.m., the fire alarm panel lit up, room 210, smoke detected. He grabbed the master key and ran upstairs. 209's door was open just a crack. He saw the man inside, sitting perfectly still on the bed, facing the shared wall. A glass of water sat untouched. The TV was on static. He didn't move. Marcus ignored him and turned to room 210. The handle was ice cold. He opened the door. The lights didn't work. The room was empty, save for a chair in the center. And in the chair, a bundle of cloth, moldy, wet. It twitched. Marcus stepped closer. The cloth unfolded itself, revealing a mirror. Not a reflection. A window. Inside the glass, a woman stared back. Her mouth was sewn shut. Hands clawed at the other side of the glass. Behind her, 1,000 more just like her, all pressed to the surface. They watched him. Then one of them whispered from behind his ear, now you're in here too. He dropped the mirror. It didn't shatter. It laughed. Marcus backed out of the room. But the hallway was longer now. Twisting. Endless. And behind him, the door to 210 slowly closed on its own. The sign now read. Room 211. Story 10. Shelley inherited her aunt's house in Maine, isolated, fog-laced, perched on a cliff. She moved in alone. The place came with strict instructions, do not use the upstairs bathroom. Ever. She assumed it was broken. The door was nailed shut, the key missing. Every night, as the fog thickened, she'd hear something from above. Water running. Sometimes, a voice humming. On the fifth night, Shelley found a wet footprint in the upstairs hallway. Just one. It pointed to the bathroom door. That night, the humming turned into sobbing. Then words. "Let me out. I'm so cold." Shelley, afraid but curious, pried off the wooden boards. Inside was a pristine clawfoot tub filled to the brim, though the faucet wasn't dripping. The mirror was covered with black velvet. She turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind her. The water in the tub stirred. A single hand broke the surface, gray, thin, delicate. Then the woman rose. She was beautiful in the way a corpse might be. Skin blue with rot, eyes completely white, mouth stitched into a smile. Shelley backed away, trying the door. Locked. The woman stepped out of the tub, water not dripping from her body, but sinking into the floorboards like ink. She spoke without moving her mouth. "You look like her." "Who?" "The one who put me here." Shelley remembered now, her aunt had always been odd. Paranoid. Obsessed with silence after dark. The woman raised her hand. "I need a new vessel." The lights went out. When they came back, the mirror was uncovered. Shelley looked at her reflection. And it smiled back with someone else's face. Story 11. Ron and Kevin were urban explorers. Abandoned factories, storm drains, forgotten tunnels, they'd filmed everything for their YouTube channel. The underpass house was supposed to be fake. A legend. A shifting structure beneath the city that only appeared at night, under certain overpasses. They found it on accident. A brick doorway beneath Interstate 44. Just there. No graffiti. No wires. Just a door. They went in. At first, it was a tunnel. Then rooms, old-fashioned kitchens, bedrooms from the 1930s, hospital beds. No logic. The GPS lost signal immediately. They marked their path with chalk. But every time they turned around, the marks were gone. Then Kevin vanished. Ron turned a corner, and he was just gone. He called out. The walls answered. With Kevin's voice. "Come find me, man. I can't move." But it echoed too well. From multiple directions. Ron ran. He found a room with a mirror. It showed Kevin, staring back, slamming his fists on glass. "Help me. I'm in here. Behind it." Ron reached out, and the mirror rippled like water. He hesitated. Then a hand touched his shoulder. Kevin. Smiling. But Ron noticed, he cast no reflection. Story 12. Lisa's grandmother always wore a necklace with a tiny bell. She said it was to warn the dead not to follow. After she passed, Lisa inherited it. That night, Lisa heard a bell ring softly in her bedroom. It wasn't moving. But it rang. She took it off and placed it in a drawer. The bell rang louder. And the air turned cold. Footsteps approached her bed, slow and deliberate, but nothing was visible. The next morning, the necklace was around her neck again. Tight. Leaving bruises. She tried to bury it. But it returned. She burned it. Still, it rang. Then one night, she saw them. Figures, hundreds, gathered outside her house. Just standing. All with no eyes. All with bells around their necks. The dead were no longer warned. They'd been summoned. Story 13. Frank restored old photographs for a living. One day, he received a stack of negatives with no return address. As he developed them, something odd emerged. Each image was of a family, sitting at dinner, reading, watching TV. But each photo had the same figure standing in the background, a tall man with a bleeding sack over his head, arms hanging limp. At first, Frank thought it was a hoax. Until he saw the last photo. It was his living room. His couch. His wife. And the man behind the window. Frank looked up. And saw the man there. Watching. Then he was gone. Until the lights flickered. and every bulb in the house burned out. Story 14. The town of Halbert had one annual tradition, the fog walk. Every October 19th, every resident had to walk through the fog at midnight, down Old Briar Lane, wearing masks. The rule was simple: never take it off, no matter what you hear. Lara was new. Thought it was silly. But when the fog rolled in, thick as soup and cold as death, she joined them. Masks on. People walking silently. Then she heard it. Her mother's voice. "Lara, please help me. I'm lost." She stopped. Everyone else kept walking. She pulled off her mask. The fog shifted. Dozens of faces surrounded her. Mouths open. Screaming silently. They grabbed her. Dragged her backward into the mist. Her mask landed on the road. Still warm. The next day, no one spoke of her. But at the next fog walk, there was one new voice calling out from the mist. Story 15. Jamie's new apartment came with a peculiar clause in the lease. Do not speak to the man behind the mirror. She thought it was a joke. Urban legend nonsense. The bathroom mirror looked normal enough. A little old, maybe warped. But on her third night, she noticed something odd. When she brushed her teeth, her reflection didn't quite match her movements. There was a lag, so brief it could be mistaken for a blink. Then, the reflection smiled. Jamie wasn't smiling. She dropped her toothbrush. The reflection mimicked that exactly, no lag this time. She leaned in. The mirror was cool to the touch. Her breath fogged it. The other version of her did the same. But it whispered, "Jamie, I can show you how it ends." She stumbled back. It only got worse. Every day, her reflection looked a little different. More pale. Dark rings under the eyes. Something twitching in the corner of its mouth. It spoke only when her back was turned. She caught the whispers in the tiles. Hints of motion behind her, just out of frame. Finally, she taped a towel over the mirror. That night, she woke to find the towel gone. The mirror cleaned. Polished. A message written on the glass in black. Almost ready. Jamie called maintenance, begged them to remove it. The handyman who arrived was an old man. He stared at the mirror, dead silent, then looked at her with a hollow expression. "You never uncovered it, did you?" She nodded slowly. He sighed. "Then it's watching." He left without another word. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat in front of the mirror and watched. Hours passed. At exactly 3:33 a.m., her reflection blinked. And kept its eyes closed. Jamie didn't blink. The reflection slowly opened its eyes, and they were black. It grinned wider than humanly possible. "Your turn." And with a sound like shattering porcelain, it stepped out. Story 16. The orphanage on Hollow Creek was condemned in 1979 after the fire. No one knew who started it. 12 children died. Decades later, Eric bought the land to build condos. During the first day, the crew uncovered a charred doll, perfectly preserved except for its blackened eyes. Then the screams began. Workers heard crying in the pipes. Children laughing in the crawlspace. Tools vanished. Lights flickered. One man quit after finding small, soot-covered handprints on his truck windows, on the inside. Eric stayed behind one night to prove it was all paranoia. He brought whiskey. A flashlight. His laptop. Around 2 a.m., he heard the doorknob rattle. When he checked, there was no one there. He turned back, and all his blueprints were rearranged. Scribbled over. Childish handwriting repeating the same phrase. "Let us out." Then the smell hit him, burned hair. Melted plastic. Something foul, chemical. His flashlight flickered. And then he saw them. Dozens of children lining the walls, eyes glowing like embers. mouths twisted in permanent screams. Their skin blistered, flaking. One stepped forward, dragging the doll they'd found on site. "Room for one more?" it asked in a voice like crackling flames. Eric never left the site. He became part of it. Now the foundation creaks, even without wind. And every condo blueprints itself to include one extra room. Never on the outside. Always hidden inside. With a child-sized bed. Still warm. Story 17. Nina worked at a call center that handled after-hours emergency dispatches. One night, the line rang at 3:09 a.m. Static. Then a voice. Very faint. Very precise. "I'm in the walls." She checked the caller ID. Nothing. No trace. "Hello? Are you hurt? Can you tell me your name?" Silence. Then breathing. And whispering, "Too many in here now. Not enough space." Nina flagged it, assuming a prank. The next night, same call. "I'm still in the walls. But I'm not alone anymore." She traced the signal again, still blank. The audio recorded fine. She played it back for her supervisor. He paled. "That's from this building. That background hum? It's our generator." The next night, Nina stayed after her shift, alone. She listened through the headset as the line rang again. A new voice this time. Younger. Desperate. "Don't pick up. Don't listen. That's how it gets in." She ripped the headset off. Too late. The whisper had changed tones. "Found you." The lights dimmed. Walls groaned. She ran, but every hallway now led to the call center, looping endlessly. And from every wall, voices now whispered in unison. "Make room." The next morning, Nina's desk was empty. But her headset was still warm. And it rings at 3:09 a.m. Every night. Story 18. In Leland's town, the lake was always calm. Too calm. No ripples. No wind. No animals. Just still water reflecting a sky that never matched the weather. Locals said it was cursed. They never swam in it. But Leland, drunk and defiant, rowed a boat into the middle one night with his camera, determined to debunk the stories. He paddled until he could no longer see the shore. Then his oar hit something solid, beneath the water. Something moved. He leaned over the edge. His reflection didn't mimic him. It stared up with wide, hollow eyes. Then it reached out. The water didn't splash. It grabbed him. He dropped the camera. It filmed everything as the water parted, revealing dozens of pale hands pulling him down, faces just under the surface. Leland screamed. His voice didn't echo. And the lake closed over him without a sound. The boat drifted back to shore on its own. Camera still running. Locals found it the next morning. When they played the footage, there was no audio. But every screen in town glitched that night. And for a single frame, Leland's face appeared. Mouth open. Eyes gone. Still sinking. Story 19. Carla bought an antique clock from an estate sale. It didn't tick. Didn't even have hands. Just a solid black face behind the glass. But every night at 2:37 a.m., the clock chimed. She'd wake to find the hands had appeared, pointing straight up. Then vanished by morning. After a week, she started losing time. 20 minutes gone here. 2 hours there. She blacked out at work. Woke up in the break room, staring at the wall. One night, she dreamed she was inside the clock. Endless years. Shadows slipping between cogs. A voice whispered, "You borrowed seconds. Now we take hours." The next day, Carla aged 10 years overnight. Hair gray. Hands wrinkled. Doctors couldn't explain it. But the clock chimed louder that night. and the hands turned backwards. She screamed as her body snapped like rewinding tape. In the morning, the clock was gone. In its place, a small pile of teeth. Story 20. The storm knocked out power across the mountain town. Jo stayed in her grandmother's cabin, alone. With no signal, no lights, and only candles, she passed the time reading. Then came the knock. 3 short taps on the door. She opened it. No one there. Just snow. She closed it. A few minutes later, 3 taps again. But louder. She peeked out the window. Footprints in the snow. Circling the cabin. But no prints leading in. Or out. Then the knocking came from the back door. Then from the walls. Then from inside. Jo grabbed a flashlight and searched every room. Nothing. Until she saw her own reflection in the window. It blinked. She didn't. Then it smiled. Not her smile. Behind her, the knocking turned into pounding. But all the doors were open. Only one place left to chat. She turned to the fireplace. From deep inside, a voice whispered, "Let me wear you."